Well, this is our 18th, this is a reconstruction of our 18th century blacksmith shop, and basically we had about 6 to 7 blacksmiths working the majority of your day. So about 12 to 14 hours a day. Your days are judged by the sunlight. Iron is the plastic of its day. It's very cheap and easy to get. It's also very malleable, so I can bend it with just applying a little heat and pressure to it. What we're making today is an S-hook. An S-hook is just a basic 18th century cooking utensil. It's used to hang pots, pans, heavy things. We found a lot of them here with the archaeology back in the 1960s, so it's a pretty common tool that would have been used by soldiers at this time. The iron bar would have come from Sterling Forest via the Rampo Mountain Bridge between New York and New Jersey. Would have been excavated there, brought to Sterling Forest, melted down to bars, and then shipped up to Newburgh. So when you think about it, the Hudson Valley was pretty much kind of like the Pittsburgh of its day. It's a big iron-producing capital.
Gotcha.
This is called a pump and bellows. The bellows is just a giant bag of air, pretty much like an accordion or a bagpipe. So when it squeezes air, it goes through the back of the fire pit through a tube, and the more air that goes back there, the hotter the fire gets, and that makes the bar nice and soft. You'll also notice that the bellows has 2 valves. So I push down, the top will open, the bottom will squeeze air when I let go, the top will close, the bottom will open. So it basically does twice the work with half the effort. You notice I don't have to keep pumping this all the time. I don't even have to use my hands to keep a continuous flow of air. It's very important when you're trying to heat something like this. Let's remove the bar a little bit, reposition it. The charcoal that we use is just burned wood. It would have been made by people called colliers. Basically what you're doing is you're making a giant bonfire and a large controlled burn. And the wood burns at a pretty, over a pretty long period of time, so I don't really need a whole lot of charcoal on here to heat this up. And I can actually start this fire early in the morning, keep it going for the majority of the day without adding any extra coals to it. So it acts like a pile of light in a gas stove. Normally, not wearing it right now, but I would be wearing a leather apron. Underneath that, a hunting shirt, which is just a workman's smock, pretty much kind of like your working clothes. The regimental coat, which I wear when I do the musket demonstrations, that's kind of more of your formal uniform. So again, you don't want to be wearing that when you're doing work like this. You also want to have free range of motion of your arms. So again, that's why the clothing back then is fairly baggy. Also, a lot of people say, you know, why do you have to wear that when you're doing this? Well, would you want to wear shorts and a t-shirt when you're working with hot metal? No. Even a modern blacksmith probably wouldn't do that. The bar right now is about close to 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. You want it a little bit hotter. You have to learn patience when you're working here because if I take the bar out too soon, it won't bend properly. If I take it out, but if I leave it in for too long, it's going to melt. So you have to really kind of gauge what you're doing. And when you're talking to people and you're doing this at the same time, it's kind of where it gets interesting. Because I could just go off into a rant and kind of leave this alone for a little bit. So another thing that the blacksmith would have been making here were nails. Nails are used to string the roofs in place. Basically, a lot of people often ask us, do they actually make horseshoes here? No, they didn't. Believe it or not, there are different subsects of blacksmiths. A blacksmith, your common blacksmith, is going to be making your everyday items, like what I'm doing right now, probably making repairs on wheel hubs and things like that too. A farrier actually works with animals. So he's a blacksmith who specializes in making horseshoes, riding tack, and things like that.
Would like cooking utensils and tools and things be made in here as well?
Yeah, probably. So the end of this bar is about, I said 1600 degrees. I'm going to wrap it around the end of the anvil. The nice thing about iron is that if I make a mistake, I'll just bend it back into shape. I'm just going to reheat this again. So you notice I'm not wearing gloves, I'm not wearing glasses. The lenses of that period were of a pretty delicate nature. Again, it's not like they're using modern lens materials. It's actually glass. So again, very expensive to get. Not using that. Not going to be wearing that obviously if you're going to be doing work like this. Also, the gloves back then are made out of a very thick leather hide. So imagine trying to pick up a pencil with a pair of oven mitts. It's very awkward and also at the same time very dangerous, because if I pick this up with gloves, it's either going to drop and maybe either hit me or hit somebody else. I also don't know how hot the bar is. So what I like to do is keep a nice mound of ash right near where I'm going to take the bar out.
So it keeps the bottom half cool. Yeah.
Exactly. It slows down the insulation of the rest of the bar. It gives me full control over what I'm working with. And that's very important when you're doing this type of job. Okay, so I'm going to take the back of the hammer now, make a second loop. It's going to be pretty wide. The triangle is called a hardy. Has a sharp blade at the end, so I just have to cut a notch. I don't cut all the way through because it's going to just fly off and hit somebody. So I take a pair of tongs instead. Just rip it right off. I dip it in the quenching pit, just a big bucket of water. And I take the rest of the bar and I dip this in there too. As you hear that, easily send you to the hospital, so you have to be very careful. After a couple seconds, it's not perfect, but nothing is. This is your rest hook. So again, you can imagine a bunch of these hanging together like a chain. It could be, you know, if I'm feeling really lazy, I don't feel like picking up a really heavy Dutch oven or cast iron cookware, I could just pick it up on one of these. So it's a pretty common tool that would be used back then. And you think about the soldiers get here in late October 1782. Winter's just around the corner. So again, these guys working these long hours, very important in order to keep the soldiers happy, healthy, and warm for the winter. In about a month and a half, the Army constructs about 575 buildings. So 8,000 people were able to construct huts to house them in before the first snowstorm. And so as a result of that, as I said before, only about 74, 75 soldiers died here. And that was mainly from basically construction accidents, because somebody's going to get hurt. Anyway, so really kind of the success of the Army here, as opposed to places like Valley Forge or Morristown, which were the earlier encampments where you have about maybe 500 to 2,000 people, soldiers dying. The legacy of the Windsor Cantonment is that the Army actually was able to survive a winter, and they were able to put the lessons of the past to good use in terms of planning and logistics. What we have here is really kind of the first professional United States Army, and it's more modern, you know, more modern form. So, you guys have any questions about?